Greetings, my fellow seekers of transformation. We have journeyed through many territories of the psyche and spirit, the shadow, the pain body, the nature of awakening and meaning. Today, we arrive at perhaps the most paradoxical and misunderstood aspect of both spiritual and psychological growth, the necessity of letting go. Mr. Tolle speaks eloquently of surrender as the path to spiritual freedom. I have spent my life exploring what I call sacrifice, the giving up of cherished identifications and inflated positions. On the surface, these concepts may seem identical, but I assure you the differences are subtle yet profound.
Both involve letting go, yet they point in different directions.
Precisely. Both recognize that growth requires releasing our grip on something we cling to. Both acknowledge that transformation cannot occur while we remain attached to our current state. Yet the question remains, what exactly are we surrendering? To what are we sacrificing? And what becomes of us in the letting go?
How does Tolle understand surrender?
For Mr. Tolle, surrender is the fundamental spiritual practice, the antidote to the ego's primary disease, which is resistance to the present moment. He teaches that the ego is essentially a resistance structure. It constantly says no to what is, preferring what was or what might be to what actually exists in this moment. Surrender in Tolle's framework means yielding to the present moment exactly as it is, without the mind's judgment, without the desire for it to be different, without the story about how it should or shouldn't be. It is a radical acceptance of reality as it presents itself.
This sounds passive, yet he claims it's deeply powerful.
Indeed. And here is where Tolle's teaching becomes subtle and easily misunderstood. He is not advocating passive resignation to injustice or harmful circumstances. Rather, he distinguishes between surrendering to the present moment, accepting the isness of what is, and taking appropriate action from a place of presence rather than resistance. When you surrender to what is, you stop wasting energy fighting against reality. From this place of acceptance, paradoxically, you become more effective in responding to situations, more capable of wise action, because you are not clouded by resistance, by the ego's reactivity, by the mind's story about how terrible it is that things are as they are.
Surrender to the form or to the formless.
Tolle's surrender operates on two levels. On one level, it is surrender to the present moment's form, accepting the circumstances of your life as they are. But on a deeper level, it is surrender to the formless, to being itself, to the intelligence that underlies existence, to what he sometimes calls the greater consciousness, or life with a capital L. By surrendering the ego's agenda, its preferences, its resistance, one aligns with a deeper current of life. One stops swimming against the river and allows oneself to be carried by it. This, Tolle argues, is the path to peace, to effectiveness, to spiritual awakening.
The ego must surrender its control.
The ego, in Tolle's teaching, must surrender its illusion of control, its compulsive need to make reality conform to its preferences. When this surrender happens, a deeper intelligence can operate through you. Life flows through you rather than being blocked by your resistance. This surrender is not a one-time event, but a moment-to-moment practice. In each moment, the ego reasserts its resistance, and in each moment one can choose surrender, saying yes to what is, yielding to the present moment, accepting reality as it presents itself.
Your concept of sacrifice seems to address something different.
Indeed. Now, let us turn to what I mean by sacrifice, which is central to the individuation process. In my work, sacrifice is not primarily about surrendering to external circumstances or to the present moment, but about sacrificing our identification with partial aspects of ourselves, particularly our identification with the ego and its inflations. Sacrifice in the psychological sense means willingly giving up something of value. But what we must sacrifice is not external possessions or pleasures, though those may be involved, but our attachment to certain images of ourselves, certain cherished identifications, certain positions we have taken up and refuse to relinquish.
The ego must sacrifice its claims to totality.
Precisely. The ego, in my framework, is not inherently bad or something to be transcended entirely, as some spiritual teachings suggest. The ego is the center of consciousness, the organ of perception and adaptation. It is necessary and valuable. But the ego has a tendency toward inflation, toward believing it is the totality of the personality, toward claiming dominion over the entire psyche, toward identifying with only certain aspects while repressing others. This inflation must be sacrificed for individuation to proceed.
What does this sacrifice look like in practice?
Consider a man who identifies entirely with his rational intellect, his achievements, his persona of success. This identification provides him with a sense of security and superiority, but it requires repressing his emotional life, his vulnerability, his shadow qualities, his connection to the unconscious. For individuation to occur, he must sacrifice this one-sided identification. He must allow the intellect to die to its claim of totality, must endure the wounding of his inflated persona, must acknowledge the aspect of himself he has denied. This is genuine sacrifice. It hurts. It feels like death, because in a sense it is death. The death of a cherished self-image, the death of an identification that felt like the very core of who one is.
Sacrifice to the self, not to external circumstances.
The sacrifice is not to external circumstances, but to the self, the greater totality of the psyche that includes both conscious and unconscious, both ego and shadow, both personal and archetypal. The ego must sacrifice its inflation, its claim to sovereignty, and recognize that it serves something larger than itself. This sacrifice is often precipitated by crisis, illness, loss, failure, depression. These experiences wound the ego, force it to acknowledge its limitations, compel it to recognize that it is not master of the psyche. In this wounding, if one can bear it consciously rather than merely being broken by it, individuation advances.
The sacrifice transforms rather than eliminates the ego.
The goal is not to eliminate the ego, but to transform it, to move it from a position of inflation and sovereignty to a position of service to the self. The sacrificed ego becomes a conscious servant rather than an unconscious tyrant. It retains its necessary functions, but relinquishes its inflation. This is the alchemical death and rebirth. The old identification must die so that a new, more complete sense of self can be born. The caterpillar must sacrifice its caterpillarhood to become the butterfly. This cannot happen through gradual change. It requires a fundamental transformation that feels like dying.
Both involve letting go, yet they seem fundamentally different.
Let us examine the relationship between Tolle's surrender and my concept of sacrifice. Both recognize that growth requires letting go of something. Both acknowledge that the ego's grasping, its need to control, must be released. Both point toward a transformation that feels like death to the ego. Yet the differences are crucial. Tolle's surrender is primarily about the ego's relationship to external reality, surrendering resistance to the present moment, to circumstances as they are. My sacrifice is about the ego's relationship to the internal psyche, sacrificing identification with partial aspects of ourselves, surrendering inflation.
Horizontal versus vertical again.
One might say that surrender is a vertical movement, yielding to the present moment, to being, to what transcends the egoic drama. Sacrifice is more of a horizontal movement, giving up identification with one part of the psyche to embrace the totality, integrating what has been split off.
Can one surrender without sacrifice, or sacrifice without surrender?
This is an excellent question. I would suggest that yes, one can practice Tolle's surrender, accepting the present moment, yielding to circumstances, without necessarily sacrificing one's psychological inflations and identifications. One might be very present and accepting of external reality, while still carrying significant unconscious inflation, still identified with a partial aspect of the personality. Conversely, one might undergo psychological sacrifice, the death of cherished identifications, the wounding of inflation, without necessarily having learned surrender in Tolle's sense. One might integrate the shadow and assimilate unconscious contents while still resisting the present moment, still caught in the ego's preferences about how things should be.
The complete path requires both.
Indeed, the most complete transformation requires both surrender and sacrifice, both the yielding to external reality in the present moment and the internal work of sacrificing identifications and integrating the unconscious. Tolle's surrender creates the space, the acceptance, the non-resistance that makes psychological work possible. But that work itself, the confrontation with the shadow, the integration of complexes, the sacrifice of inflation, must still be undertaken. Without surrender, psychological work becomes a battle, a struggle, another form of the ego's resistance. But without the deeper work of sacrifice and integration, surrender risks becoming a form of spiritual bypassing, accepting what is externally while avoiding the internal transformation that is calling.
How do we practice both surrender and sacrifice?
In concluding our exploration of surrender and sacrifice, I find myself appreciating both the spiritual wisdom Tolle offers and the psychological depths that individuation demands. Tolle's teaching of surrender provides an essential practice for releasing the ego's exhausting resistance to reality, for finding peace in the present moment, for aligning with the deeper current of life. This surrender is genuine spiritual practice with real transformative power. For those caught in the ego's endless war with reality, Tolle offers a path to peace that is accessible and immediate.
Yet the psychological sacrifice cannot be bypassed.
However, the complete journey toward wholeness requires more than surrender to external circumstances. It requires the courageous sacrifice of our cherished identifications, the willingness to have our inflations wounded, the capacity to endure the death of partial self-images, so that a more complete self can emerge. This sacrifice is often painful. It requires confronting what we have denied, integrating what we have repressed, acknowledging our limitations and wounds. It cannot be bypassed through spiritual practice alone.
Both are forms of death.
Both surrender and sacrifice are forms of death. Death of the ego's control, death of resistance, death of inflation, death of identification. And both, paradoxically, lead to new life. The life of presence, the life of wholeness, the life lived in service to something greater than the ego's limited perspective. May you have the wisdom to practice both, surrendering to the present moment in Tolle's sense, and sacrificing your inflations and identifications in the psychological sense. May you know when to yield to what is, and when to undergo the transformation that feels like dying but leads to rebirth. For transformation is always a death and rebirth. The old must die, whether through surrender or sacrifice or both, for the new to be born. This is the way of all growth, all awakening, all individuation.
The death that leads to life.
Yes, do not fear the death, fear only clinging to what must be released. For in the surrender, in the sacrifice, in the letting go, this is where we find what we truly are, beyond all identifications, beyond all resistances, beyond all inflations. This is the paradox. We must lose ourselves to find ourselves. We must die to be reborn.
Become who you truly are.